Regeneration in Doctor Who started as a way to recast the first Doctor actor William Hartnell when his declining health began to affect the show. Nobody knew at the time that they had immortalized the story of Doctor Who and gave it a star to orbit around and be illuminated by for eternity. Regeneration is a milestone in the Doctor's life. It represents growth of both the character and the show as they embrace positive change and progression. In essence, this growth and change is the heart of the show. Regeneration is the Doctor Who experience, and it's beautiful. But not according to Russel T. Davies, the man who soft rebooted the Doctor Who world twice. To Davies, regeneration is death, tragedy, loss, a regrettable cost which must be avoided. If he had it his way, then regeneration wouldn't be at all what it is, and now that he's back in charge, it may never be again. So let's explore Davies' complicated relationship with the beating hearts of the Doctor Who narrative, and what the recent choices of the most popular modern showrunner have meant for the show's past, present, and future. Before we begin, a quick recap is in order. The first Regeneration was quite unrefined and vague at the time. It was just a recasting dressed up with this overexposed fading effect pioneered by Shirley Coward. The specific rules and function would be added retroactively in the years to come. It wasn't even called Regeneration until the third Doctor's Regeneration 8 years later. This process heals the Doctor as a way to cheat death, but changes his face and form. The brain is also reshuffled, resulting in varying personalities with relative consistency. Think shuffling a deck of cards. Each Doctor might have different cards at the top of the pile, but if you dig deeper, they've all got the exact same 52 cards somewhere inside of them. The first Doctor and the 15th Doctor are the same person, as are all the Doctors in between. One character who grows and evolves with the times. Unless you ask Russel T. Davies, that is.
Even if I change, it feels like dying. Some new man goes sauntering away, and I'm dead.
The most famous Regeneration story penned by Davies was the 10th Doctor's. In a vacuum, it's a really compelling final outing which immediately exposes its priorities, drama and impact. This is the loudest regeneration, the most destructive regeneration, the longest regeneration, the saddest and angriest regeneration. It's an absolutely powerful and emotional experience for the audience, but it also highlights Davies' complete inability to let go. If you think regeneration is death, then this makes sense. But compare this story to every regeneration before and after, and it starts falling apart. Right from the first Doctor's,
It's far from being all over,
to the sixth Doctor's,
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
regeneration has been understood by the character and the show to be a necessary and sometimes scary moment of growth and development. All of the Doctor's incarnations embrace their ends as new beginnings for themselves.
Now don't cry. While this life,
It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.
Well, except for the second Doctor, but that's mostly because he was being forced and didn't like his options for new faces.
Is this the best you could do? I've never seen such an incredible bunch.
So it was total whiplash to have the 10th Doctor stare nearly straight down the camera at the audience and tell us that regeneration feels and functions exactly like death. Not the metaphor for change and growth, not a defining moment of allowing himself to become something more than his present self and evolve, but plain old miserable death. Some stranger runs off with his TARDIS, and the Doctor we know dies for good. This isn't a positive change, this is a tragic loss. Davies likes David Tennant's 10th Doctor, and he doesn't want him to go. This special was to be Davies' last as showrunner, and Tennant's last as the Doctor. Obviously, they are both letting their roles go in the literal sense, but Davies' understanding of regeneration as death seems to motivate this consistent narrative in Tennant's era that it's a catastrophic loss to go through. Now, it's tempting to blame the 10th Doctor's dialogue on character alone, and the 10th Doctor is mocked by the 11th Doctor in his regeneration story for being so dramatic and averse to change.
when number 10 once regenerated and kept the same face, I had vanity issues at the time.
But Davies' regeneration is death attitude extends to most of the characters in his era. When Rose reunites with the Doctor and he begins to regenerate, it's a loss for her.
He's dying, and you know what happens next.
Not now. I can't go this way.
After the Doctor has his sad chat with Wilfred, he also treats the prospect of regeneration as permanent death.
Please don't die. You're the most wonderful man, and I don't want you to die.
This feeling overwhelms him, and he offers to die just so that the Doctor doesn't have to change faces. When Wilfred dies of radiation poisoning, he doesn't get to stand back up. The Doctor does. Again, the priority here is drama and impact, but it's coming at the expense of what we've known regeneration to mean to the Doctor and to the show. We're trading years of regeneration as change for regeneration as death. This culminates in the 10th Doctor's last words being a teary-eyed,
I don't want to go.
as he regrettably succumbs to change. To Davies and the characters of his Doctor Who era, the Doctor has died in this moment. It's a powerful and heartbreaking moment to end on. Except it doesn't end there. The 11th Doctor shows up, and now we've been conditioned by the showrunner to not see him as the Doctor. This is the new man the Doctor feared, taking the TARDIS from him and sauntering away, leaving the real Doctor behind to die. If the 11th Doctor didn't have arguably the best pilot episode of the New Who era, his introduction could have been completely sabotaged by Davies' take on regeneration. This story does work in a vacuum as a tear-jerking final farewell to the 10th Doctor and this era of the show, but at the expense of the tradition which came before and the Doctor Who immediately came after. Regeneration as death has been a consistent theme in Davies' time as showrunner, but this story from start to finish is the Doctor despairing that regeneration is death. Even if you discount this as 10 being a crybaby with vanity issues, this canon perspective on regeneration completely recontextualizes the process as we've known it. Once the Doctor himself severs each incarnation off as a different person, it becomes depressing to think about all the losses we didn't know we suffered. No, William Hartnell's first Doctor isn't somewhere inside him, because he died in Antarctica. No, the Doctor you know and love and have been watching for years isn't the 11th Doctor who appears before you. This man is not your Doctor.
Trust me, I'm the Doctor.
Now, Russel T. Davies famously returns as the Doctor Who showrunner 13 years later. But in the meantime, let's do a quick overview of how regeneration has been handled since this episode. The very next episode pulls a complete reversal and immediately declares, very literally, that the 11th Doctor is the true Doctor and a direct continuation of all Doctors before him.
Hello, I'm the Doctor.
It's a return to the regeneration is growth messaging of the classic era. When a machine scans the Doctor's body, it identifies him by all of his incarnations in order. When the 10th Doctor returns in the 50th anniversary under the new showrunner, he remarks,
Good to know my future is in safe hands.
and this sense of continuity carries all the way to 11's regeneration. He speaks to how all people go through changes in life, that we all metaphorically regenerate, and that it's necessary for our growth as people. It's an excellent way to translate the experience of regeneration to something completely human, growing up. The 12th Doctor's first episode has both companion and audience being repeatedly told not to judge him by his face. And the point is hammered home when the 11th Doctor calls from the previous episode to remind our companion that he is still with her.
That was me talking. You can't see me, can you? You look at me and you can't see me. Please, just see me.
Some people felt babied by this exchange and were taking offense to the notion that we, the audience, wouldn't see the two Doctors as the same man. But it's a refreshing reminder after the Davies era that the Doctor's regeneration is unambiguously not the death of a character. Interestingly, this Doctor also refuses to regenerate like 10 did, but the key difference is the reason. 12 was tired and worn down. The loss and pain and struggle were overwhelming to him. In a world where regeneration is death, this opposition to regeneration makes no sense. He opposes the change because the change means continuing. He will continue to fight, to lose, to feel pain and the endless struggle against the forces of evil. He doesn't refuse to regenerate because he doesn't want to die. He refuses to regenerate because he doesn't want to live. After changing his mind, he embraces the change, as does the 13th Doctor in her final moments, smiling as she welcomes her next self into the world. The regeneration theme is clear in these two eras in a returned form. Change is good. Growth is good. Progress is good, and we must keep moving forward. Hey, wait a minute, that's David Tennant! So, Russel T. Davies returns to Doctor Who with David Tennant returning as the now 14th Doctor.
Look at the top of his head!
While Davies stopped short of delegitimizing the next Doctor straight from the current Doctor's mouth like last time, we still see that he struggles immensely with regeneration as growth and with letting the Doctor go. The characters in universe now seem to understand that regeneration isn't death, but the writing choices suggest Davies hasn't fully come round to letting go.
It's not dying.
I know.
It couldn't be a clearer opposition to how 10's regeneration was written and portrayed. As 14 prepares to change, he readies himself and goes out with 10's old catchphrase. It very much feels like an alternate 10th Doctor regeneration in which he treated regeneration like all the other Doctors before him had. I love seeing him ready to change. I was so happy to see Davies embrace regeneration as the next step rather than the final breath. Then, Davies doesn't let go of the Doctor. There's a lot of weird mixed messaging from this point onwards. Bi-generation isn't the issue, but the 14th Doctor sticking around is. Personally, I was waiting for them to merge together akin to the Watcher and the 4th Doctor, but instead the 14th Doctor gets to just, well, live. The dialogue insists that these two are the same person, but the story keeps them apart because in Davies' mind, they are not. The new Doctor comes at the expense of the current. Regeneration is still a tragedy. Per his commentary on the Giggle,
It kind of preyed on me that regeneration is always done as a tragedy and a sadness.
this quote seems to confirm Davies hasn't come around to the idea that regeneration is about growth. It hasn't been a tragedy and sadness historically. It's bittersweet, but always positive that the Doctor goes on, with the exception of the 2nd Doctor being picky and the 8th Doctor regrettably going to war. Now that this bi-generation has happened, we learn that no, there isn't some crazy cosmic reason why this face came back. Tennant is the Doctor because Davies wanted him to survive his regeneration this time. The explanation we're given, that this face came back to say goodbye, implies a level of separation between the Doctors, as though Sarah Jane's reunion with the Doctor was soured or less meaningful because she had a different face to the two she remembers. What's more direct is the line,
You've been given a second chance. You can do things different this time.
the Doctor has regenerated on screen at least 15 times now, but this is his second chance? Try as he might, Davies can't help but see the many faces of the Doctor as completely separate people, each meeting their death in regeneration. The antithesis of the 11th Doctor's breakdown of regeneration as growth. This is a second chance for this Doctor to survive his regeneration, and he does. The other explanation we're offered is that the Doctor needs time to rest and recover from adventuring, that wearing himself thin has brought this face back. Behind the scenes though, Davies laments the amount of work it took to explain away Tennant's return with Catherine Tate's Donna Noble.
Because one of the things about the Star Beast is to get you back, and Catherine back with to jump through so many hoops.
Yeah.
Anniversary specials traditionally do feature returning faces, but always pluck them from their own time. Davies wasn't compelled to write this face back in as a brand new Doctor, but doing so lets him save Tennant from regeneration this time. Those hoops were jumped through specifically to bring us to the moment when the Doctor splits and Tennant doesn't have to go. As if Davies wrote this ending first and then worked his way backwards to arrive at it. Try as he might, despite all the superficial moments of characters assuring you that regeneration isn't death and all the Doctors are one, Davies' writing cannot escape the treatment of regeneration as death, and nowhere is that more apparent than in his thoughts on bi-generation. In the commentary for the Giggle, he goes on to say that in his mind, the Toymaker's magic affected the Doctor's whole timeline so that every regeneration was a bi-generation.
I think down the timeline, they all separated. All the Doctors came back to life with their individual TARDISes.
All the Doctors come back to life. 7 words which perfectly capture the struggle to understand regeneration as a continuation and not an end. In this hypothetical world where every regeneration leaves the previous Doctor behind, we are dividing the Doctor identity into pieces. This world allows the 5th Doctor to have adventures that the 7th never did, just as it's implied that the 14th Doctor is having adventures that the 15th didn't. These are lessons and experience and moments of growth that our present Doctor is missing out on because his life is no longer linear. The Doctors don't heal and grow under Russel T. Davies, they divide. The only incarnation that Davies seemed to be able to let go of was the 9th Doctor, and I can only assume that's because his relationship with 9th Doctor actor Christopher Eccleston had fallen apart catastrophically.
Sack Russel T. Davies.
That's speculation, of course. But ever since that first regeneration, Davies has never committed to the idea of regeneration as a positive and necessary growth. Instead, we have proposed a world in which the stagnation of one's personal growth is to be celebrated. where maybe none of the Doctors had to be brave and move on, where the superficial face of the character is of greater importance than the shared essence and lived experience of that character from their first portrayal all the way to the present. Regeneration is not bound by strict rules set in stone. It started as a mystery and has gradually been iterated upon over the generations of Doctor Who, as recently as the previous Doctor's final series. This isn't about rules, it's about meaning. Whether regeneration is a gift of the time vortex or a genetic trait stolen from an orphan, whether it's a function of the TARDIS or something completely independent and inherent to the Time Lords, regeneration has always meant change. To everyone except Russel T. Davies. It is sad and difficult to move on in your life from a time or a place that gave you so many memories. Maybe we instinctively cling to what we know for the comfort, and maybe sometimes we wish we could go back and do it all over again. Maybe sometimes it gets worse, but then maybe it gets better after that. We are all products of change. We all regenerate. Our lives are divided into distinct but connected eras of identity. We are constantly in states of transformation. There are people who have only met the old you, and people who will only know the new you yet to come. Your name belongs to a different face, and very likely a different personality depending on which incarnation a given companion met. But they're all you. You haven't become the person you are today at the cost of their existence. They live within you and inform your present incarnation, just as the present incarnation is informing your next. It's not death, it's life. And it's beautiful. I really believe that the Doctor's regeneration resonates with us for something much bigger and more important than death. Growth, change, making it through to the other side no matter what. The days to come always offer more than the days gone. What could be is always more than what has been. When it comes to regeneration, in this bat's opinion, death can't hold a candle to the colossal radiating shine of a flourishing and ever-changing life. Thank you all for time traveling with us through Russel T. Davies' relationship with regeneration. Let us know in the comments how you feel about regeneration and what your favorite regeneration was. Personally, mine was 9. For those of you joining live, know that you guys are the highlight of our team's week. If you like our Doctor Who content, please be sure to check out our previous Doctor Who video on the 50th anniversary. As a reminder, we have a Patreon now where you can get access to squeakless, uncensored videos, behind the scenes, and outtakes. And of course, the more people join, the more time we, the team, can spend on creating new and exciting content for you, and trust that we really want to. So if you love our work, please consider supporting us. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Whee!